No blindfolds needed on this episode of Battle Guides featuring Cherri. Cherri is a brawler who uses her amazing effects as well as her powerful unique ability to mesmerize opponents. However, that all comes at the cost of having generally mediocre stats, being very reliant on her unique ability, as well as needing proper token management. Cherri's unique ability is Dreamscape Madness. Cherri starts the game with 1 insight token and has a maximum of 1 insight token. Now, during the ante phase, Cherri can ante her insight token to make a clash happen upon reveal regardless of priorities. Whenever Cherri takes 3 or more damage at once, she regains her insight token. Note that she can also regain her insight token using her styles as well as her base. Note also that whenever a player reveals their special action card, your insight token does nothing. Whenever Cherri clashes the opponent or extends a clash against an opponent, that opponent loses 1 life. This unique ability is amazing! You cannot underestimate this unique ability. On the surface, it seems really simple, right? You just clash and you deal damage. That's it. But it's so much more than that. A lot of players oftentimes misinterpret how useful this unique ability can be. Oftentimes they're like, okay, so we clash and I'll keep clashing you to deal more and more damage. That's a valid strategy, but I think it's not the best use of her unique ability. In fact, I think it's one of the worst ways you can use the unique ability, because getting more damage is cool and all, but it's not the best way to use it. Personally, I look at her unique ability like having the ability to use a cancel more than once per game. Think about it. By forcing a clash regardless of priorities, you're basically forcing your opponent to change his base. This is very, very powerful because when they change their base, the next base they play because of a clash has to come from the remaining bases in their hand, which means that you lower the amount of options your opponent can play while knowing that the insight token is going to be anti during that beat. This gives you an inherent advantage when it comes to hand quality because you can just easily play a really bad attack, use your insight token, and then switch in the base that's really powerful. So even if you just clash the opponent once and they only lose 1 life, that's almost always more than enough to make up for how powerful this unique ability can actually be. Forcing your opponents to play really bad attacks is a really good thing, which is why I also think that Cherri is one of the greatest brawlers in the game. Do note, however, that it's all about the mind games. Your opponent will eventually realize that if you keep anteing your insight token, they'll start playing their worst attacks first. This is an advanced strategy, and I'll go over that later on, but keep that in mind for now. Now let's move on to her styles. First off is Dreamscape. Dreamscape has negative power and positive priority. It's pretty okay. However, the big thing about it is the before activating effect that allows Cherri to basically move directly to any space behind the opponent. This makes it a very powerful tool if Cherri gets cornered at any point in the game. Because as long as she's cornered, the opponent will have a ton of space behind them. And with that comes the ability to teleport really anywhere on the board. And that's really powerful, especially against certain opponents who need you to be at certain spaces on the board, or against certain opponents who don't have a lot of hit confirm. Now when it comes to attack pairs, I highly recommend pairing this attack with Strike. Now Strike is a very interesting pair with this attack because although it does give you negative power and although it does have positive priority, the thing about this is that it technically gives you full board range, quote and unquote, so long as the opponent isn't at the opposite edge of the board. This makes it a very powerful pair with the aforementioned Strike because Strike desperately needs that hit confirm. Another powerful pair with this is her unique base, Stare. Stare copies the priority of your opponent's base. So if Dreamscape gives you +1 priority, so long as your opponent's style does not have more priority than Dreamscape does, Cherri almost always goes first. This is a very powerful attack, and of course, it regains your insight token, though it doesn't deal a lot of damage, so watch out for that. Next up is Crimson. Crimson gives you +0 to 1 range, negative power as usual, and priority plus 0. The biggest thing about Crimson is that reveal effect over there that basically reads, if you're faster than the opponent, clash them. That's it. Because if Cherri reveals an attack pair whose base stats are greater than the base stats on the opponent's attack pair, in terms of priority I mean, Cherri causes a clash to happen. That's it. It's a very powerful effect because basically you don't have to spend an insight token to be able to force the clash on your opponent and make them play a bad attack pair. Crimson's innate range is very useful as well because when you're clashing out your opponent, sometimes you may get stuck using a strike or a grasp, and the range helps with that a lot. Trust me. Now when it comes to attack pairs, I highly recommend pairing this thing with Dash. Dash is the fastest attack you can play, and if you're faster than the opponent, you insta-clash them. It's simple as that. And the greatest thing about it is that since you're forcing a clash, you don't actually use up your dash when you're doing Crimson Dash. So it's so good because the next beat, you gain the ability to still use your dash, and it's a very powerful move to do indeed. Now the other attack, if you're not into dash, is using Grasp. Grasp works in a very similar way. If your opponent has an attack that's prio 5 or below, you basically clash them. Because again, remember, even if your opponent does clash you, it's fine because they're losing life anyway and you're not. Next up is Catatonic. Catatonic has plus 0 range, plus 0 power, and minus 2 priority. Stun Guard Wu 3, Soak 1. That's an effective Stun Guard 4, making this one of the most defensive moves Cherri has. And albeit it's slow, the thing about this is that it's not actually meant to extend clashes or force a clash to begin with. In fact, Catatonic is meant to regain your insight token. This is all part of proper token management, which I'll explain later on. Being that it's a defensive attack, it usually doesn't get used with the insight token, so you don't usually clash out your opponent and stuff. But if you do find a good use of the insight token, of course, use it. Use it by all means. And the beat, if you were hit, you regain your insight token. So as long as you brawl and hit your opponent and he hits you bad, it's almost always a great deal for you. Now when it comes to attack pairs, I highly recommend pairing this attack with Shot. Shot gives it the range it desperately needs and synergizes well with the Stun Guard. Or if you really want to throw your opponents off, you can even play Drive. Drive also gives it the range it so desperately needs, and since it's already Stun Guard 3+, you don't really care about the extra Stun Guard. Next up is Mirage. Mirage is very interesting. It has plus 0 range, minus 1 power, of course, and plus 0 priority. The thing about this though is that on reveal, the opponent's style's priority becomes plus 0. This is a very interesting thing because it basically means that Cherri now gains the ability to clash dance you into oblivion, because a lot of characters oftentimes circumvent Cherri's entire clash dancing mechanic by simply just having bigger stats on their cards. Now, if Cherri is able to negate that big stat, she can clash the opponent as much as she wants or as much as she can. Now, of course, after activating, it allows Cherri to reposition into range 3 as well, which is a very powerful thing because a lot of Cherri's biggest moves can hit range 3. In fact, even her unique base hits range 3. Now, when it comes to attack pairs, I highly recommend pairing this attack with Stare. Stare is a very interesting pair with Mirage because of the fact that Mirage makes your opponent's priority plus 0, and then Stare copies your opponent's base's priority. This basically means that if you play Mirage Stare, almost 100% of the time, you're clashing your opponent. It's a free clash most of the time, and that's very good. On the other hand, I highly recommend Drive because it gives it the hit confirm it so desperately needs. You've heard that before. Next up, we have Blind. Blind has range plus 0 to 1, which is very good, power plus 0, which is very good on Cherri, and negative priority. But the thing about it is that after activating, opponents with priority 3 or less can't hit you. This means that if Cherri's faster than the opponent and if the opponent's playing a generally slow attack, Cherri gets a free hit on the opponent most of the time. Now, Blind is a very interesting attack again because it plays a lot into Cherri's unique mechanic of clashing. Because of most of the time, opponents may want to play their slowest attacks in order to avoid being clash danced. Because most of the time, most opponents will want to be fast. See, if you clash them, they'll usually play their second fastest attack, third fastest attack, fourth fastest attack, so on and so forth. And some people might get savvy on you and start just playing their slowest attacks first. Use this to your advantage. If you can play Blind and then clash into your Grasp and then use this, most of the time you can force your opponent to miss almost all the time. And that's a very powerful way to do it, to go around it. When it comes to attack pairs, I highly recommend pairing this attack with Grasp because it's the fastest attack you can play and you can make use of that after activating effect. But I also highly recommend it with Drive. Not because it gives it the hit confirm it so desperately needs, but because a blind drive is priority 3. And the effect beats out opponents who have priority 3 or less. This means that if your opponent has a priority 3 attack, it's totally okay because you clash them anyway. So that's perfectly fine. And if they play anything slower than that, they miss. So it's a very great attack and it allows you to hit the opponent without getting hit. And finally, we have our unique base, Stare. Stare is range 1 to 3, power 2, priority X, wherein X is the printed priority of your opponent's base. And then on hit, Cherri regains her Insight token. This is a very powerful unique base because not only does it have magical range 1 to 3, it also allows Cherri to regain her very valuable Insight token. And the thing about this is that it pairs very well with a lot of Cherri's styles because it basically allows her to clash dance her opponent even more. The thing about this is that most opponents' unique bases have differing priorities. So sometimes an opponent might have a unique base with priority 3 and so on and so forth. This means that oftentimes, if Cherri did not have Stare, she'd never be able to clash dance opponents because if they have a prio 3 unique base, the moment that you use your strike to clash out their strike, their unique base is almost always safe to play. Stare alleviates that problem because it basically has the same priority as every other base in the game, which is very powerful indeed.
Now when it comes to attack pairs, I highly recommend pairing this thing with Mirage.
For reasons I've told you before, because it gives you free clashes. And on the other hand, I also highly recommend it with Dreamscape because of reasons I've told you before. Cherri's 2 Overdrive finishers are Soul Gaze and The Watchers. Soul Gaze is a big, fast Overdrive finisher that's very inaccurate. See, it only hits range 3, has power 6, and priority 9. However, the thing about it is on hit, the opponent is stunned and Cherri gets her Insight token back, which is very good. The thing about it though is that it's range 3. So this might ring a bell because remember, one of her styles allows her to move directly into range 3. Range 3 is where Cherri wants to be and this Overdrive is very threatening at range 3. So if you can make it work, it's amazing. But if that's not your thing, maybe you want to do The Watchers. The Watchers is a mid to long range Overdrive finisher that doesn't deal a lot of damage and it's not that fast. But the effects are amazing. On hit, Cherri can move the opponent to any space and then she goes to any space. And then after activating, Cherri regains her Insight token every beat now. This basically means that Cherri can clash every single beat and it'll be insane. Simple as that. If you can hit it, you practically win the game, in my opinion. So it's my preferred Overdrive finisher for Cherri. Now, when it comes to using her special action, Cancel and Pulse are very interesting as well. Cancel is not that useful because Cherri's unique ability is basically using Cancel every other turn. And Pulse is okay. She's not that positioning reliant because of Dreamscape and Mirage, so it's not that useful. Cherri advanced strategies can be summarized into 3 simple points. Number 1, token management. Token management comes in many forms, but simply put, you need to take damage to regain your Insight token. So trade and trade as much as you can. However, the thing is, you should be trading only for 3 damage and above. If your opponent's gonna hit you with a 1 or 2 damage attack, you might as well dodge it because that doesn't regain you any Insight tokens. Also, it's highly possible that you can go through many beats clashing opponents without even using your Insight token once. Many of Cherri's styles and base allow her to clash the opponent without an Insight token. Crimson, Mirage, and Stare come to mind. So as long as you manage those tokens, as long as you manage your resources properly, you'll be able to clash your opponent on almost every single beat of the game. Number 2, clashing. Clashing is a very important thing you have to remember, but not just the rules of clashing, but the purpose of it. Clashing, as Cherri, is often misunderstood. You see, a lot of people, like I've said earlier, want to clash because they want to get the most amount of damage possible. That's a lofty dream that will barely ever happen, my friend, because many smart players will catch on to that and just play one of their slowest attacks to avoid getting clash danced forever. So, when using Cherri, it's all about using your unique ability to prevent your opponent from playing their best attacks. Simple example, your opponent has Clockwork Shot in their hand, but you have your Insight token. Play your Insight token, suddenly, Clockwork Shot doesn't exist, and now he has to play something like Clockwork Strike, or whatever. Something like that is more than enough to win you an entire beat, and you get a free +1 damage from it as well. Number 3, Mind Games. Now I told you, Cherri's all about making your opponent waste their best attacks by basically disorienting their bases. Smart players catch on to this very quickly, and they start playing suboptimally. So, for example, your opponent has Clockwork Shot in his hand, and he wants to play Clockwork Shot. So, instead of playing Clockwork Shot, he plays Clockwork Strike first, and then, because you antied your Insight, it just goes into Clockwork Shot, and suddenly you can't do anything about it. This is a very high-level thing, but it's the crux of what Cherri is all about. It's all about mind games, baby. You have to read your opponent, basically, because you have to insight their best attacks, but at the same time, your insight pressures them into playing suboptimally. So as Cherri, it's all about taking advantage of those moments where you can force your opponent to play suboptimally. Taking advantage of that suboptimal play from the opponent is very good. And sometimes, but not all the time, not playing an insight token is actually better than playing an insight token. Let that cook in your head for a bit. Let's go to some Cherri combos. First up, Crimson Dash. Crimson Dash is just so good. It basically reads anti your insight token. And that's not a bad thing. It's very powerful. It allows you to clash your opponent almost instantly. Crimson has +0 priority, meaning that if your opponent has +0 priority, which most of opponents do, you can easily clash dance them. And then, it's even better because your dash doesn't get used up. In fact, because of the fact that you clashed, dash goes back into your hand, and whatever bad base you put there is what gets sent to the discard pile, which is very good, especially when it comes to managing your resources. Next up is Catatonic Shot. Catatonic Shot. Okay, I'll be upfront with you guys. I'm biased. Catatonic Shot might not be the best attack Cherri has, but it's one of the most defensive ones she has. Sometimes opponents with big power will just stun Cherri out of what she wants to do, and as Cherri, sometimes you don't want that to happen. Catatonic Shot is very powerful because it technically has a power +1 on it because of your insight token, so on and so forth, but it also has soak 1, which means that when you're trading a positive of 2. But not only that, you have an effective stun guard 6, which means that almost nothing will stun you, and not only that, but you regain your insight token if you're hit. All of that together makes Catatonic Shot one of the best attacks Cherri can do, for me, in my opinion. And finally, we have Mirage Stare. Mirage Stare is another attack pair that basically reads play your insight token. Most of the time, if your opponent doesn't have any priority plus tokens or priority plus effects from their unique ability, whatever, this will immediately result in a clash. And it's very good because it sets up for a really long clash chain. But in the end of it all, you get to reposition yourself to range 3, deal some damage to your opponent, and then whack them with a power -1 attack. That's not a bad deal at all. And that pretty much does it for this episode of Battle Guides featuring Cherri. Now, if Demetros was one of my friends as main characters, Cherri was another friends as main character. I played against Cherri a lot, and it made me realize how interesting BattleCon can be when you know that your attack pair that you're playing might not be the one that will resolve. Oftentimes this has let me gain the knowledge of knowing when to play poorly or play suboptimally for an advantage. This is very useful for many advanced characters like Seth, so keep that in mind. Maybe playing against Cherri for long amounts of time will improve your BattleGUIDES game as well, even if she might be annoying to fight against. Now, if you like the video, like the character, like the game, check the description out below for more level 99 game stuff. I'm sure they'll have something you'll love because all the games are really, really fun. If you want to join the BattleCON community, talk to me or any of the other BattleCON veterans, check the description out below for links to our forums and our websites. And then, if you want to send me a comment or an email or whatever, check the description for my email address and check the comment section down below for, so you can write a comment and ask me some questions. Now, that's all I really have to say. Oh, wait, if you guys want to join the Skype group that we have for BattleCon, message me, send me an email, and I'll be sure to add you on Skype, and we can chat. It's pretty fun there. Now, without further ado, don't forget your special action, and thank you, World of Indines. Thank you, and good night.